to us by Isabel Wright online, I think. Isabel? And there she is.
Hi there, I'm here. Morning, everybody. So the purpose of the report is to provide an update on where we are with finalising the 23-24 internal audit plan. The plan was agreed by committee in April 2023. Paragraph 3.1 sets out the workload, including the other client work undertaken. It also summarises what audit reports have been completed and provides an update on the remaining audits. A summary of progress relating to all assignment areas is at Appendix 1. Appendix 2 summarises the findings arising from assignments that have been finalised via an internal audit report, which have not been reported to a previous committee. I'd like to point out a typo in Appendix 2. The overtime arrangements audit was a no assurance report. The no seems to be missing from the assurance level section. Paragraphs 3.3 and 3.4 highlight the delays we have continued to experience in relation to our audit work and how that impacts on agreed time allocation of audits, with paragraphs 3.5 to 3.7 providing some detail around our 6 monthly continuous auditing duplicates work, as well as an additional data matching exercise that was undertaken. I'd ask members to note the recommendations and conclusions. That is that the team made good progress with completing the 2023-24 internal audit plan, and that the 2023-24 internal audit work will contribute to a balanced and evidence-based year-end opinion on arrangements for risk management, governance and control. Thank you.
Right, any questions? Isabel, can we look at 3.3, where you're talking about internal audit continuing to experience delays, etc. And it says that the senior leadership group had undertaken to monitor these issues to ensure improvement. However, there's been no signs of improvement. What's your interpretation of that?
I think there has been, it's probably better for someone else to answer, but from my point of view, I think that the senior leadership team have reminded people to be more timorous in their responses to us, and maybe because of priorities that hasn't happened. Our delays are not only around the answers that we require to evidence the audit work, but also delays once the report is ready to finalise the audit to get it issued, which then has a knock-on effect to our next audit work. So we have met recently and we have discussed it becoming a standing agenda item. We also have discussed putting some more escalation routes in place. So that might be something that Chris wants to come in on, I think. That's okay.
Yeah, thanks Isabel for that. I will reiterate what Isabel has said there in terms of escalation routes. It links through to a number of the reports in this section and the outstanding actions as well. And it's disappointing in the later report where we've gone from substantial to limited. There is a focus on it, and as I outlined earlier, there will be a session for senior managers, a special forum of the senior leadership forum, where we'll be focusing on governance, the expectations of officers to engage with internal audit and the actions and the assurance, overall the governance frameworks of the council. We are looking at putting in escalation routes where internal audit are coming up against difficulties in having responses. There will be a clear escalation route up through the officer to the director, from director either to myself or director to the chief executive. So we are taking it seriously. The chief executive will have it on a standing item. It's on the SLG agenda, and the directors will have it on their senior management team meetings as well.
Okay, thanks. So the room is around the corner. Good. In 3.4, it said there are issues out with the internal audit team's control which impact on the ability to meet or exceed performance. Under whose control are these issues?
That was just a follow-on from the paragraph before to say that when we're experiencing these delays, it then is right with our control. There's only so many times we can chase and send email reminders and escalate to other managers further up. So it's really just a follow-on from the paragraph before.
Thank you. Can we now look at Appendix 2, the use of purchase cards, and I would happily down the main narrative, the final report, exec summary. We have identified significant weaknesses and made certain recommendations. I take it what you're saying is that the problems here have been procedural rather than in any way kind of criminal.
Yes. Yes, the issues are around the full list that's there. So yeah, but there is a risk that the council are leaving themselves with a gap there where there is a potential for fraudulent activity, and we obviously want to close that gap.
Sure, understood. Moving on to overtime arrangements. Question. No. Yeah, no, yes, I did have. Over the page in 152, again, you talk about the high number of overtime hours being claimed on a daily basis, and you say it's not possible for someone to work 19 hours in a day, but yet there are claims going in for that. Is that not fraud?
That certainly needs investigation.
That's under investigation, is it?
It certainly should be within the service, yes.
Okay. All right, thanks. No more questions? In that case, I will formally propose the paper. And do I have a seconder? No one's looking at it. Councillor Earl, thank you very much. Do we wish to debate the paper? We do not. And do we approve the paper? Yes, we do. Thank you, Isabel. Moving on now to item 12. Again, back to you, Isabel, on this one, for the Internal Audit Assurance Report 23-24.
Yes, this just moves us on from where we've just spoken about the opinion on risk management, governance and control for 2023-24. So this report is the 23-24 Internal Audit Annual Assurance Report, which follows on from that progress report. The purpose of the report is to summarise the work Internal Audit have undertaken over the course of the last year and to provide an overall opinion on the Council's arrangements for risk management, governance and control based on that work. The report also comments on our compliance with public sector internal audit standards. As you can see from section 2, the Audit and Scrutiny Committee are asked to note that sufficient internal audit work was undertaken to support a balanced assurance, and that internal audit can provide a limited assurance on the arrangements for risk management, governance and control for the year to 31st of March 2024. In providing this opinion, Internal Audit operated in compliance with the public sector internal audit standards and also met and exceeded each of our performance indicators. Paragraphs 3.1 to 3.11 provide more detail in relation to internal audit compliance with the standards and explain that the internal audit manager is required to confirm the effectiveness of the internal audit service as a prerequisite to providing an assurance opinion. An external assessment was completed earlier this year, which concluded that the internal audit team fully conforms with the standards, providing this committee with independent assurance. Section 4 presents a summary of internal audit work undertaken during 23-24. The internal audit plan for 23-24 proposed 16 assignments. This included 11 audit reports specifically relating to Clackmannanshire Council. Paragraphs 4.4 to 4.8 provide some detail relating to each of the assignments and the reports that have been finalised. A summary of all work completed is set out at Appendix 2, and the scope and the findings arising from the finalised assignments is set out at Appendix 3. Page 159 of your agenda provides you with two tables. The first of these, at paragraph 4.10, relates to the number and type of assurance opinions provided by internal audit in 23-24. With comparator data from the two previous years. The second table at paragraph 4.13 highlights the breakdown of the classification of recommendations we have made, again with available comparator data. Paragraph 4.13 also highlights that over 30% of recommendations made in 23-24 need to be addressed urgently. Paragraphs 4.14 to 4.19 provide the background to the overall opinion at paragraph 420, which is that internal audit provide a limited assurance in relation to the Council's arrangements for risk management, governance and control. This is a disappointing assurance opinion for both the Council and for us in the internal audit team. Paragraphs 4.21 and 4.22 further highlight the issues faced by internal audit and acknowledges that the Council has many priorities and challenges. However, there are significant further improvements required to strengthen the control environment. Paragraph 4.23 includes a table of internal audit performance against key performance indicators and explains at paragraph 424 that actual performance met or exceeded target for all three indicators. Paragraphs 4.25 and 4.26 set out the reasons for the delays in issuing audit findings, with agreement from the senior leadership group to monitor and ensure improvement. In overall terms, the programme of work was completed within the agreed time allocation. So I'd ask members to note the recommendations and conclusions. That is, that sufficient internal audit work was undertaken to support a balanced assurance, and that internal audit can provide a limited assurance on the arrangements for risk management, governance and control for the year to 31st March 2024. In providing this opinion, internal audit operated in compliance with the public sector internal audit standards and also met and exceeded each of the performance indicators. Thank you. Happy to try and answer any questions.
Councillor Force.
Thanks, Chair. I've got a few questions and I don't know whether they'll be Isabel or Chris, but hopefully someone can pick them up. Obviously, we've moved to a limited assurance, which, as you said yourself, Isabel, is a bit disappointing and it is concerning. I'm just wondering, though, how does that compare with the kind of picture across the local authorities in Scotland?
There hasn't been any benchmarking done as such over the local authorities, but from my own opinion, and I obviously attend a national group where we discuss our own updates, and there is definitely a theme running through where there seems to be less substantial assurance reports and more limited reports. There's also a lot more people saying there are delays within their own organisations in getting the responses quickly. So it does seem to be a recurring theme. Capacity, it seems to be a bit of an issue around them all. So therefore, jobs maybe remaining vacant and not being able to be filled also has an impact. I'd say that we obviously raised this last year at this point as a potential issue, because last year we were having those issues and we were seeing more and more limited assurance audit opinions. So we'll probably come to this point maybe a little quicker than maybe others might, but it's more about trying to do some of that work to pull it back, if that's the way to put it. Hopefully that helps.
No, that is quite helpful, thank you. I am also just wondering how much of the change in assurance level is kind of down to a lack of responsiveness or a kind of deterioration in the governance framework?
Yeah, you've got it completely there. It's both of those points. The delays, because they're twofold in that they're not coming quick enough, but also when we're then trying to confirm our findings, if that information's not available and maybe becomes available after that point, it means that there's a lot of rework in trying to understand evidence, and sometimes we'll get a lot of responses back that say, no, we do that, but there's no evidence of it. There's no formal documentation to back it up. So that leaves us in a position where we are auditing what we find at the time with the source documentation that we've been given. And if that's not there, then that's not something we can do. So obviously the knock on to that, or maybe an impact from that, is that because resourcing capacity is an issue, we've heard it quite a lot already this morning, that where those gaps are occurring, there's maybe just not the person there to prioritise that work. So it becomes a bigger problem. So the bigger the gap becomes, the more the issue is, and that there's more of a weakness around the processes and procedures that are in place.
Okay, thanks. Another question. So I'm picking up from that really, as an organisation, we need to be putting a bit of focus on making sure that we are indeed following the kind of the governance and compliance, but also that we're keeping the appropriate records to make sure that we can demonstrate that we are doing that. So I suppose this is one for the overall services really, is what actions are we taking to kind of improve the responsiveness in relation to audits, but also the compliance around governance as general. I think I'd kind of addressed that earlier with Pete and his service, but you know, kind of overall, where are we heading with this?
And I think I've touched on it earlier, Councillor Forson. So we met, myself and the Chief Executive met with Isabel, I think last week, to discuss some of the areas we were looking to do in terms of improvements. As I said, we're going to have a specific senior managers forum that is going to focus purely on governance, the overall governance framework, which will include internal audit, our annual governance statement, the role of managers, the role of directors, the requirement to engage with internal audit, the required to respond, and the actions to be taken. We'll be using our Pintana system. There were points where all the internal audit findings were not on Pintana. I understand that they are all up now in there, or up to date for the most recent ones. There'll be regular reporting again coming to Audit and Scrutiny in relation to progress on actions. Isabel is going to actually participate in the session that we're having with our senior managers in terms of governance. We are going to introduce escalation routes so that internal audit have assurance that we will be responding to them quickly and on time, and if that's not happening, then we'll progress up to the director to make sure that that's happening. Directors will be asked to have it as a standing item on their senior management team agendas, and it will probably be a focus, as I said, with the Chief Executive on the SLG agenda. So there is work. It's extremely disappointing that we have moved from substantial to limited, but I think we are all of the same view that we will look to improve that and ensure that improvement comes through and is followed through into next year. I suppose we are asking internal audit to focus on the areas where we think there is risk. it's good that we're getting these reports. It'll strengthen. Ideally, we'd like everything to be substantial. We know there's areas for improvement. We could choose relatively easy areas where we're going to get substantial assurance, but we've gone for areas where we think there's the biggest risk to the council. This can only strengthen our governance, but actually, us as a management team have to ensure that we're following through on those actions.
And how quickly do you think we'll begin to see the fruits of these changes?
Personally, as strategic director, I'm hoping that this time next year we have a report that says we've made substantial issues.
There won't be any kind of interim report.
I have a report later in terms of internal audit actions, so there will be a 6-monthly report in terms of progress on these actions, and the committee will have the opportunity to question relevant officers in areas where maybe there's no progress that they may ask officers to respond.
Okay. Get that one in the head. Okay, no further questions from anyone? All right, once again, I will formally propose the paper, which asks us to note the work of the internal audit and the limited assurance that has been given rather than the substantial. However, I will propose the paper. Anyone willing to second that? Councillor Forson, thank you. Do we wish to debate the paper? No. Right. Do we approve the paper? We do. Thank you. Up to item 13, the internal audit plan for 24-25, and once again, it's Isabel.
Yeah, sorry, but it is the last one, thankfully for you. So the third and final report from internal audit today sets out our proposed programme of work for 2024-25 for approval. The resources we've got available for delivering our planned programme of work are set out in the table at paragraph 4.4. Paragraph 4.5 provides details relating to how that plan is split into 3 categories. That's our annually recurring assignments, which are pieces of work we're committed to doing on a rolling annual basis. Most of these are externally driven and regulatory type reviews. Our committed assignments, which are the audits we'll commit to completing this year, and other client work, which is the audit work we undertake for our other clients as part of the Clackmannanshire Council Internal Audit Service. The assignments that make up each element of the plan are set out at appendices 1 to 3. I've tried to give a little bit of detail on what the scope for each is likely to be, though again this may change once we start properly planning each assignment over the course of the year. The process for planning, undertaking and reporting on each individual assignment will remain the same as in previous years and is set out at paragraphs 4.6 to 4.12. So to finish, I draw your attention to the recommendations at paragraph 2.1. In particular, can I ask that committee approves the internal audit plan for the year, but to bear in mind the resources available to internal audit and the need for the plan to remain flexible. Internal audit will direct resources to where they're most needed, and progress will be reported to Audit Committee on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
Thanks, Isabel. Any questions? Don't think so, and that's fairly clear, straightforward, covers the areas that have been highlighted earlier. So I will propose the paper on that basis, and it's seconded by Councillor Benny. Thank you. Do we wish to debate the paper? No? Do we approve the paper? Yes, we do. Thank you very much. Thanks, Isabel. Moving on to item 14, Internal Audit Actions Progress Report. This is from yourself, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. This paper actually, I suppose, brings together the themes that we've actually been speaking about over the last 3. The paper as presented asks committee to note, comment and challenge the Internal Audit Actions Progress Report. The paper provides a summary overview of the outstanding actions, with Appendix 1 providing a fuller overview of progress for committee to note. A total of 199 actions are identified in the report, with 109 remaining outstanding, although a number of these are on track or in progress and will be completed. Of those actions which are graded, and gradings first started in 22-23, 22 Grade 1 actions remain outstanding and 41 Grade 2. In addition, 2 papers were tabled earlier today related to public body climate duties and the refugee scheme governance, which gave further updates on these areas. Efforts continue to be made to ensure that all outstanding actions are progressed. Significant organisational change, the pandemic response, increasing demand on services, plus reduction in resources as a result of budget constraints have undoubtedly impacted on the progression of a number of actions identified by internal audit. However, a greater focus, as we've spoken about, is required across our directorates to ensure progress is maintained and actions are completed. A further update report will come forward to committee towards the end of the year, where it is hoped further significant improvements will be seen. Chair, officers from our directorates and I are happy to take any specific questions that committee may have.
Okay, Councillor Bennett.
Thanks, Chair. Just one thing in the internal audit progress report. There seems to be a lot of empty spaces where you've got say, page 199 and 200. The date completed is not in, and I'm wondering why that's not put there, and if it's not updated, then why has it not been updated?
So Councillor, so that they haven't been completed. That's why there's no date in those. So there are actions outstanding. So yeah.
Okay, I'm going to it upside down. Okay, thank you.
Yes, on table. Sorry, Martha, have you finished?
Not finished.
Table 1, page 193, 4, 5. In the actions identified column, it's got 199 items, and in the next one, actions outstanding, it's got 103. But if you look at some of the narrative under note, the figures, take the first one for example, 4 actions outstanding according to one column, but then 1 item outstanding in the note column. So is this what date does the actions outstanding refer to? Is that the start of the session?
So in terms of, so for that first one, so yes, 8 complete. So there are 4 actions outstanding because 4 haven't been fully completed. So there's 3 that are on track to be completed, but 1 hasn't started. So yeah.
So basically, if we look at the bottom of that, we've got 103 items out of 199, which is 52%. Uncompleted outstanding actions. Does that strike you as a large number?
Yes, and I think it goes again in part way as we've been discussed in terms of the reports that Isabel has spoken to today and the level of assurance and the greater degree of focus that has to be in terms of these actions being addressed, taken forward and then closed off. So that is the focus of the improvement work that we'll be doing over the next few months.
So we'll see this table come back to us and the numbers will be...
Yeah, so there's another report due in the next 6 months, and hopefully there'll be significant improvement in those, and there will be updates regularly on a 6-month basis for all internal audit actions that are loaded into Dana.
Okay. Yeah. Councillor Thorson.
Yep, I'm just looking at the findings, I suppose, for the adult social care arrangements, where there's no assurance being given, and there's pretty much red statuses all the way down there, but we're past the deadline for achieving most of these, and I'm just looking at the 31st of May. So I'm just looking for a wee bit of an update on where we are with that, and given that we are overdue, what steps are going to be taken that's supposed to kind of prioritise this and hurry it along a bit?
Right, yeah, come on, you.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. I have an update ready that I need to agree with David before we submit it. We are slightly behind in terms of providing an update. Some of that's just been availability of quite a lot of them have lots of bits of the system and people feeding into them. So some of that's been around availability of people to ensure the updates are accurate and people have ownership of the actions. But I can give assurance that it is in hand, and we'll pass over the update to be uploaded in the next few days. Thanks.
Did you get an answer to your question?
I suppose we're going to get an update in the next few days, but when will it be reported to us in the next
6 months.
6 months?
6 months. No. Any? Nothing?
I can, when we get the update from colleagues at the HSCP, I can circulate it to members of the committee so that they have assurance.
Okay. Do you have any more questions? None. In that case, I will propose the paper. Seconder, please. Mr. Porson, thanks very much. Right, we're asked to note, comment and challenge the report, which we have done. Wish to debate the report? No. Do we approve the report? We do, thank you. Let's move on now to item 15. Exceptions from the application of contract standing orders. Your good self.
Thanks once again, Chair. The paper, as presented, asks committee to note, comment and challenge the exceptions to contract standing orders which have been submitted in the previous quarter. Committee will note that only one exception was considered since the last report in April of this year. This exception related to the direct appointment of ski tech systems to supply replacement artificial ski slope matting at the value of 46,000. The exception was considered by the former Strategic Director for PMP, the Council's Section 95 Officer and the Council's Procurement Manager. The exception was granted as there is no other UK provider of the specific matting required. Chair, I would be happy to address any points the committee may have.
I suppose one question might be that obviously gives them an opportunity to charge what they like. Has the market been explored to find out if alternative matting is available? If not the same type, maybe at a more affordable rate?
I understand there was previous tendering exercise, and it goes back to the point that Gavin made before in terms of best value. We look at the financial aspects in terms of
best value filter, is it? Fine. Okay, thanks. No more questions, I don't think, on that. It was a relatively straightforward one, so without hesitation, I will propose the paper and it will be seconded by Councillor Fairley. Thank you very much. Do we wish to debate? Do we approve the paper? Yes, thank you, we do. Thank you very much, Chris. So, item 16, corporate risk register. Thank you. And this will be delivered to us by... Oh, by Cherie. Sorry, Cherie, everything going there.
Fine, thank you. So this report presents the 23-24 year-end update on the corporate risk register. This report is part of a regular reporting to Audit and Scrutiny on the Council's risk management approach and corporate risk register. At the end of 23-24, 18 risks were recorded on the risk log, including 8 red, 9 amber and 1 green. In terms of the approach, 13 are being treated and 5 risks are being tolerated. Since the previous update, 1 risk has increased in score, which is industrial unrest. The report sets out the Council's robust and systematic approach to corporate risk management and also provides information on the complex and challenging external context within which the Council operates. Lastly, a new corporate risk management strategy was approved by Council in October 23, and the Year 1 report on progress against that strategy will be reported to committee in the autumn. I'm happy to take any questions on the report, and I'm joined by my colleague Judy Richardson, who can also assist to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Jerry, one question from me, just looking at page 289, the log. Basically, we see change in one item only, And yet there are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, I mean, at least a dozen items that have treat against them, and they've had treat against them for probably about 2 years now. Treating isn't working. Do we have any idea why?
So we'll maybe let my colleague Judy Richardson come in a little second, but I think the report does set out some of the challenging context against, which the council is trying to mitigate some of the risks. So, around the social, economic, environmental, financial situation. So I do think that creates a particular challenge. I can say, because I was part of the process, that, Judy worked with each of the risks owners and the directors and managers to review each of these risks, and that's part of the systematic process that she undertakes with colleagues. So an assessment on each of these risks is undertaken prior to it being reported to committee each time. There needs to obviously be sufficient evidence to support an increase or a decrease in the scoring of risk. But I'll maybe let Judy come in. She'll probably want to add more.
Yes, just to agree with Sherry's comments there, I think there's two sort of elements to it. One is that risk assessment is a pseudoscience, so it's not, you can't in detail quantify all of these elements. So when we're scoring, it's on a basis of 1 to 5 for impact and 1 to 5 for likelihood. So while progress may have been made within those, it's maybe just not been substantial to move it alongside the guidance up to the next level. Or down from that level. And I think the other key element at the moment is in relation to the balance between internal activities and worsening external circumstances. I think we're all aware of many wider global events and issues and within the UK, within Scotland, and particularly within public services, such as workforce recruitment and retention issues. So I think while there is a huge amount of work ongoing internally, it is just that some of these external circumstances have been worsening alongside that. So it's resulting in a net sort of balance in the score. But had we not been doing that work internally, the scores would have worsened.
I understand what you're saying. That is that within any one of these risks is a combination of external and internal factors. And what you're saying is that improvements on the internals are being nullified by poor performance in the external, or more threats in the external factors. That's what you're saying, basically. So it's not that we're not making the effort, it's being overwhelmed by outside factors. That's your position on this. Okay, right. But they're not all external factors, are they? I mean, some of them are internal. And with the new cooperation we're talking about with the senior, with the new four of the leaders and people like that, they're not some way that we could focus attention on at least some of the more important ones, rather than trying to treat all of them. Look at the ones that we can put most energy into a significant improvement in one of the more important ones, certainly one of those high-scoring ones.
Yes, I think the other thing is that obviously the corporate log is at a very strategic level. So as part of the risk management strategy, where we'll be providing the update in the autumn, I'm working with all the members of the Internal Risk Forum to look at lower level, more operational risk registers, and how there's a hierarchy of the registers where these issues all get fed up and down. So we're looking at a sort of overarching approach to ensure that all the elements, workforce, finance, all the information management issues, and the transformation programme is going to be absolutely central to that. So a lot of the work in terms of data and digital will support more efficient working of staff so that they're less tied up in dealing with some issues that will be automated.
So we can confidently look forward to some improvements then from a new approach.
Sorry, I didn't hear that question.
Can we look forward to improvements then from a new approach to problem solving here?
Yes, I think we're very much hoping to sort of look at how we can all support each other better and make sure that all of our corporate approaches are all tied up with an overarching aim of reducing risk, but also looking at benefits. I think that's one thing that this report sort of breaks a principle that I like to apply, which is that you shouldn't look at risk in isolation, because what we don't have, what I'm working on, is a similar summary of benefits and outcomes, and basically looking at flipping that risk matrix, the red and green, over, and looking at, okay, so where are we for our various self-assessments in relation to some other areas that have been on the agenda already in terms of climate change, workforce and various other elements, and looking at the positives, because risk is obviously looking at the the concerns, but actually these are really just the things that might get in the way of us achieving those benefits and outcomes. So we want to sort of flip this focus much more onto what are we achieving and where are we getting, and using the data and evidence to prove that.
Okay, thanks. That sounds promising. Any more questions? In that case, I will propose the paper. It should note the report, comment and challenge it. Do we wish to debate the paper? Oh, a seconder.
I'll second it, but I do wish to debate the paper as well.
Thank you for that.
Really to kind of add a few comments.
Do you want to put your mic on?
Yeah, happy to second the paper, and I just wanted to add a few comments. There are so many areas within here that are out with the council's control, and I just want to highlight one of them. The recent child poverty figures were released, and I was contacted by the Alloa Advertiser about them. There's an interactive map. If anyone's interested, you can go on and you can have a look at poverty levels broken down by SMIDs, and in some areas in Clackmannanshire we're now reaching 50% of young people living in poverty, according to the new map and the new figures. And I just wanted to highlight that this is a red for us, and we're treating it. We are doing so much work around that in relation to the Family Wellbeing Partnership, our partnerships with organisations like the Citizens Advice Bureau, etc. But it just seems like we are constantly pouring in resources and they're falling out the bottom because of the external circumstances. As a council, we don't have control over the cost of living crisis, of interest rates, of so many different factors that impact on these things. But it's important to note that we are managing to do something to make a difference. There was some independent analysis done that if we weren't carrying out the interventions that we were carrying out, then child poverty levels would be between 10 and 7 percentage points worse. So if you take that into consideration, that would be increasing from 50% to 60% in some areas, and we would push in other areas in Clackmannanshire towards that 50% level. So I think we need to be mindful of the interventions that we are taking, and whilst it sometimes feels like it's not having the impact that we want it to, it actually is, because it's actually mitigating a lot of the circumstances, not to the level that I would like, or not to the level that I think anyone here would like, but we are dealing with a set of circumstances that we have little control over, and we're continuing to kind of pour in resources and supports wherever we can. I think that's just one example of where, as a council, we are taking significant actions, but given the external circumstances, we have to be realistic in what we can achieve from them, and it's frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a bit like trying to run up a travelator coming down. Yeah, same effect. Okay, thanks. Any more contributions to the debate? Did we approve the paper? We do. Thank you very much. Well, that completes the public section of this meeting. We will now have a short